It's the silent witness to an aircraft's final moments, a nearly indestructible guardian angel that holds the key to preventing future tragedies. We all know it as the black box. But you know, the real story of this device is just full of surprises and paradoxes.
Right off the bat, it's not really a box. Modern flight recorders, they're actually built to be cylindrical or even spherical. Turns out, that shape is just way better at handling the massive forces of an impact.
And here's the one everyone knows. It is definitely not black. It's painted as super bright fluorescent orange. Why? Well, to make it as easy as possible to spot in the middle of a chaotic crash site. So if it isn't a box, and it isn't black, what is the real story behind this vital orange guardian of the skies? How did we even get it? Well, that's the mystery we're going to unpack today.
Our story kicks off back in the 1950s. The world was absolutely captivated by the dawn of commercial jet travel. The star of the show was the de Havilland Comet. It was sleek, it was futuristic. But this brand new age of speed, it came with a truly terrifying price.
The world's very first commercial jetliner was, just without any warning, falling out of the sky. 3 of these catastrophic failures in less than a year. It created this global crisis of confidence, and the worst part? Nobody knew why it was happening. Imagine being an investigator back then. It was a horrifying, painstaking task. They were literally trying to piece together shattered bits of wreckage that they'd pulled up from the seafloor. They had to rely on the absolute tiniest of clues, things like paint smears from passenger seats that ended up on the tail section. That's because they had no record, zero idea of what was actually happening on the flight deck in those final, fatal moments. But a young Australian scientist named David Warren, who was an expert in aviation fuels assigned to the Comet investigation, he looked at this total lack of information and just thought, there has to be a better way.
And Warren's solution? Well, it came from a brilliant and honestly a surprisingly simple idea that connected 2 completely unrelated worlds.
So while he's wrestling with this comet problem, Warren goes to a trade show and sees this new gadget. It's called a Miniphon, a tiny little pocket recorder. People were using it for dictation, maybe even a bit of spying. And for Warren, that was the spark. He realized that a small, really rugged version of this thing in the cockpit could capture the exact sounds and data that investigators were so desperately trying to find. His first prototype, which he called the ARL Flight Memory Unit, was absolutely ingenious for its time. It could record 4 hours of cockpit chatter and key flight data, not on tape, but on a thin, really durable steel wire. It was built from the ground up with one purpose: to survive a crash. And this, by the way, is where the name comes from. See, in engineering, a black box is any complex device where you only need to know what goes in and what comes out. You don't need to know how it works inside. The name just stuck, even though it had absolutely nothing to do with the color of the device. Now you'd think the aviation world would immediately jump on this life-saving invention, right? But you'd be totally wrong. The first reaction was basically outright hostility. The pushback was immediate, and it was fierce. Aviation authorities were skeptical, and the pilots' unions, they were furious. They didn't see it as a safety tool at all. They saw it as a spy in the cockpit, a way for management to listen in on their every word. It was this huge debate about technology, safety, and surveillance that, honestly, sounds a lot like conversations we're still having today. And the resistance was institutional, too. Warren's own boss saw his work as nothing more than a distraction. He was literally told to drop the whole idea and get back to his real job, which was blowing up fuel tanks. The breakthrough finally came in 1958. A former British Air Vice Marshal, Sir Robert Hardingham, was visiting and saw a demo of Warren's prototype. He got it. He immediately understood its potential, and that led to interest from the UK, but the struggle was far from over. When they were offered a demonstration, American aviation authorities just flatly said no.
So, what on earth finally changed everyone's mind? Tragically, as is so often the case in aviation safety, it took another crash to force the issue.
This time, the tragedy hit really close to home for Warren. In 1960, a Fokker Friendship plane went down in Queensland, Australia. And once again, investigators were just completely baffled. They had no clear cause for the crash. But this time was different. The judge who was leading the official inquiry, he had heard about Warren's invention. And in his final report, he made a powerful, crystal-clear recommendation. A flight memory unit must be put on all airliners without delay.
And that judge's recommendation,
That was the final push. Australia made history, becoming the very first nation on Earth to legally require cockpit voice recorders. David Warren's vision, an idea that was born from tragedy, was finally a reality. From that moment on, the flight recorder was adopted all around the globe. And it has evolved from that simple steel wire prototype into the incredibly sophisticated digital guardian that protects all of us in the skies today.
I mean, the leap in technology has just been immense. Warren's original device, it tracked maybe a handful of things. Today's recorders, they capture thousands of data points every single second. Everything from airspeed and altitude to the exact position of a tiny switch. They create what's basically a complete digital ghost of the flight, letting investigators recreate every single moment.
But the evolution is not over, not by a long shot. Investigators are now looking at the next generation of this tech. Should recorders be deployable so they can actually eject from the plane before impact and float, transmitting their location? Or should they just be streaming all that critical data to the ground in real time? These are the debates that are shaping the future right now.
From just a simple idea to solve a terrible mystery, David Warren's invention has saved countless lives. And as aviation keeps evolving, with more and more automation, more complexity, we have to ask, what new unforeseen challenges are coming? And what crucial new stories will this little orange guardian need to tell us next?